Welcome to Dive Deep, a ministry of Christ Wesleyan Church where we seek to go deeper and become better disciples of Jesus Christ. I'm your host, Kyle Roberts, the pastor of spiritual formation here at Christ Wesleyan Church. Our current series, All In, discusses how we, the church, can truly be all in for Jesus and not just our beliefs, but in our actions as well. We're excited for you to hear Pastor Branden's thoughts about his sermon from this past weekend. Pastor Branden, thank you so much for being here again.
Yeah, as always, it's a pleasure. Good to see you too, Pastor Kyle.
All right, so I have a fun question for you today.
I love these.
Recently, I just got a book that has 1,001 conversation starters in it, so we should be good for a while in regards to these fun questions. But here's the fun question for today. Are you a traveler or a homebody? And why?
I would more say I am a traveler because my wife, Nikki, is also a traveler. We're both very social people. And I've been to Guatemala 10 times. She's been there 8 times. I've been to Ethiopia. I've been to Zambia. We both went to Israel together. We've both been in Europe together. We've been in Ireland together. And it's actually a dream of ours when we retire. You know, if the good Lord gives us all those years yet to come, our ideal thing to do when we retire is to buy an RV and to travel the United States up into Canada together. So, I mean, there are some weeks where it's nice, you know, just to relax and stay home. But more so, you know, when you have a goal of retirement to say we would love to travel this nation and globe together, I would probably say, yeah, we're more travelers than homebodies.
That is so cool. Chloe and I also have the dream of getting an RV, just a little one. And I would consider ourselves traveling homebodies because we like to travel within like Pennsylvania radius. But outside of that, we don't really do it very much.
Wow.
But I like to stay pretty close in. But one of my favorite things to do is to visit some of the game lands and game forests that are around because it's so cool to have those little pockets of nature and of God's creation, just even here in our backyard.
I mean, I love that stuff too. I mean, not as much as you. I'm not an outdoorsman per se. I've never been hunting or never shot anything like that in my life. But I do like to travel. I like to see the world, you know, what God gave us. And I love doing that, especially with my wife.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with us.
Of course.
What is the place you look forward to going to most, like your dream vacation with you?
Yeah, I mean, I was really looking forward to Ireland, visiting London, and we've already done that. But the places that we haven't been, I've always just loved, this would probably be my dream vacation, is the Great Barrier Reef off of Australia.
Oh, yeah.
And to go swimming with sharks.
I've actually done that before.
In Australia?
I went when I was in 6th grade with like a student ambassador program. It is one of the most incredible experiences.
Wow, is there
of
an
your
adult
life.
ambassador program?
I
somewhere?
wish.
Yeah.
I would totally go again, but man.
I would love to do that. I don't know if Nikki would join me in the shark diving, but she'd certainly go to Australia with me. So I mean, I was kind of jealous when we gave Pastor Arlie and Sharon a retirement gift of New Zealand and Australia. I'm like, yeah, that's my dream vacation too.
Hey, Pastor Ken, if you're still around, this is the one.
And Pastor Ken would say, I probably won't be working there then.
All right, so let's get into our scripture passage that we had from this past weekend, which is Matthew 6:19 through 24. Today we're talking about your sermon, Giving Eternally. And let's go ahead and read that passage. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If the eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve 2 masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. So you talked a lot in your sermon about storing up our treasures in heaven rather than on earth. In practical terms, what are some of those earthly treasures we may not think of the things that kind of hide in our background. And how do we rethink or replace those with treasuring heavenly things?
Yeah, isn't this a nice little passage in the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus just stops and basically gives us three things, You can either choose earth or heaven, a good heart, a bad heart, materialism or God. I mean, you can't serve both. And so it's so easy in this world, though, and I tried to say it nicely, but how easy is it to hold fast to things of this earth, like a new house, a nice big house, a nice car, and I'm looking at things and I'm like, yeah, Nikki and I are looking to build a house, but we want to be both modest and also a dream house because we like to entertain. We like to invite people over. We like to be hospitable. And so we want a nice house in order to do that. And, God has blessed us in a way that we can then turn around and use possessions to bless others, not to just bless ourselves. And I think that's what Jesus is saying here is, listen, it's not going to matter the size of your house. It's not going to matter what great car you have or the clothes on your back. At the end of the day, it's not about those things, but those things are still nice to have. But how are you using those possessions? And that the intent behind it is where we get the word treasure. What we treasure. You're not to treasure those things. It's not horrible to have them, but if you treasure them, you're going to want more of that. You'll want nicer of that. Why? To glorify yourself more so than glorifying others or helping others to enjoy what you have if they're not having those. And so what Jesus is saying here is and then he says, your eyes, how you look at things, how you covet. In this particular passage, Jesus isn't talking about purity as much or what we're looking at on TV. That's part of the eye, but in this context he's talking about coveting other people's stuff and coveting power. You want to grab those types of things, and what you look at radiates down to your heart, and then your actions will follow suit. And so he's really giving us a choice here is, hey, what matters? Eternity matters. This earth is good. We're supposed to be living in this world, but not of the world, he goes on to say in another passage. But here it's all about your intent and what you're doing with the blessings that God has given you. Having a nice house, that's not bad. Having a nice property, that's not bad. That's great. But how are you using that? Are you using that to glorify God? By inviting people over to give them a meal if they don't have to? Are you holding on so tight that what if God really prompts you to give your house away, to give your car away? Now, those are extreme things. It's not the same thing as, hey, there's this picnic table that you have. Somebody is in need of a picnic table for their meals on a regular basis. Would you give up your picnic table? That's easy. Oh, it's a picnic table. But my house, that's another level of giving. But in this context, Jesus is saying, what are you doing with your time? How are you spending your time? All in recreation? No. But how are you using recreation to bring glory to the things that actually matter? And that is winning people to Jesus. That is, like you said, the earthly things are those things that are obvious. But what isn't obvious is the eternal things, like salvation, souls, changed life. Like we're going to talk about this week, making disciples. And how are we making those disciples? Those things are going to last. Salvation lasts. Souls last. How are you investing in those things? Not just a place, the things that moths and vermin can destroy. I don't like that word vermin. Just reminds me of rats too much. And
yeah, I don't blame you.
I don't do
super
rats.
Gross.
I don't do rats. Just don't come at me with a rat.
Yeah, I think that's such an important distinction to make of there's a difference between money or tools that we use and the love of money, the love of those tools that we have. Because when we are putting that much stake of our lives in that, it can go away so quickly. I mean, how fast can money be gone just with like paying our car insurance bills or to like paying the other bills that are coming in? Money's always coming in and going out. And the love of money in that case is really something that takes us away from God and even the love of other things here on this earth. I know that something that I would say I don't necessarily love, but I find myself gravitating to a lot is YouTube. It's one of those
Me
things
too.
where like it's so easy to just click through all the channels, and like there are lots of great channels that I love
Fail
to
Army.
watch.
Have you watched Fail
Oh
Army?
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Last night I was watching Fail Army just to decompress my day, and it's just so funny watching the failures of other people.
Yeah, it's great. There are so many funny things to watch on there, educational things to watch on there. And in and of itself, those things aren't bad. But it's when I'm watching on a Saturday and it's like, holy cow, I started watching this at 10 o'clock and it's now 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I've
Like I've
invested
spent
this much
3 hours
time.
on the couch watching YouTube. That's something that I wouldn't say that I love YouTube. I do love YouTube, but it's something that I need to really look at and say, do I treasure this more than I treasure my time with God? How much more am I watching YouTube than actually spending in prayer or spending in the Word? And I think that really shows where our treasures lie. So for you listening in the audience, maybe it's something different than that. What is something that you may not say that you treasure, but are naturally gravitated to in your schedule that is taking up more time than investing in relationships with others in these important things?
That you just brought up an excitement that I have for bringing Dive Deep live. This type of discussion, bringing a live audience where we can take questions from the audience at this point of like, do you have a problem with this teaching? Like, do you have any questions about what you value, or you might have a nice home and are you convicted of that? And so asking those questions to, me or you, might clarify some of our, audience questions that we can't do right now. We can talk about these things, but a lot of times we don't hear the questions as a result of these podcasts. So when we bring this podcast live, I'm excited to hear, like, after we give our thoughts, like, okay, now what do you think, audience? Do you want to challenge us at all? I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, we might as well go into that announcement just for now. So for those of you in the area local to Christ Wesleyan in Milton, we have this new opportunity to become more involved here in the Dive Deep podcast. And what we're calling that is Dive Deep Live. It's going to be happening in Davis Chapel here at our Milton campus starting on September 8th. It'll go from 6:45 to 7:45 p.m. The podcast here will still exist, and there will be opportunities to hear questions from those who are attending in the audience like we were just talking about. If you want to connect with others while learning more about the Bible like this podcast, and you want to ask Pastor Branden and I some questions that you may have from either the sermon or the sermon passage like we're doing right now, come on out to Dive Deep Live in Davis Chapel. We would love to actually meet you there in person, love to hear your questions, and to ultimately become better disciples of Jesus together.
It really is. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be funny at times. It's going to get serious at times. The well isn't going to close till 7 o'clock. So grab something at the well. We're going to be doing meals for $3 and max family, no matter how much family you bring. $15 is the max you're going to pay for a nice home-cooked meal. Grab a coffee at the well. Come on down to Davis Chapel. It's gonna be cool. I mean, I've never done something like this, but I'm looking forward to it. Those of you who like the challenge, just come on out.
Kidsway and Youth will also be available for the rest of your family too. So if you want to bring your whole family to this event, that's why we have made it for you.
Yep.
Your kids can go up to Kidsway, be ministered by Pastor Amanda Lebo, our midweek coordinator, as well as the other awesome volunteers that are a part of that. And same with youth. I mean, our youth is so successful on Wednesday nights, and Pastor Eddie and Mia just do a fantastic job with them, as well as our volunteers.
You know, something about what we treasure. I know, Jesus specifies the last word in this scripture is money, what we treasure, money, but also we can treasure time too. Where we spend our time, how we spend our time also can give us notification of what we treasure. So come on out a Wednesday night, just an hour and a half of your night. Do you treasure knowledge of Christ? Do you treasure being with people who want to be more like Jesus, to fulfill the John 10:10 principle of living this life abundantly with what Jesus wants for us, living life to the full? Sounds nice. I think this is one way we can do it.
I agree. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody and seeing Wednesday nights really just come alive with people wanting to become more and better disciples of Jesus. That's why we do what we do here at Christ Wesleyan, to see people made more into his image, and then to take that image to others who want to be like it as well, to others who want to experience the life change that Jesus has offered to them. And that's our whole goal here at Christ Wesleyan. So invite your friends, invite your family. We would love to have you here at Dive Deep Live and the rest of our midweek ministries.
We are disciples making disciples.
Exactly.
That's what we want to do here.
So I've got one more question for you. What are some ways that we can give here at Christ Wesleyan Church and in our community?
Well, I think there's multiple ways we can give. Obviously, we have a great mission program where maybe a monetary, gift, donation to missions, whatever. Maybe that's your way of giving. And I didn't say the word tithe yesterday, first service. I think I brought it in second service. But make sure we're tithing. That is a good way to give out of the generosity of what God has given us. And so, I think one thing is make sure you're tithing. And another way you can give is to serve as well. Man, host a small group and in your community, and invite some of your friends maybe that don't go to Christ Wesleyan, but invite them to your small group, invite them into your home, give your time, your talent, and resources. That's like all of them together if you host, or become a leader and we can find a host for you. There's multiple ways you can do that. Contact Kidsway and youth to see how you can invest in the next generation. There's multiple ways to do that here at Christ Wesleyan, but also, getting involved in your community as well. We have organizations that we support here at Christ Wesleyan, so we support what we think are the ones, that we want to give to, and so you could volunteer for one of those organizations. We have contact info for all of them too.
Do you happen to know a couple of those organizations off the top of your head right now?
Expectations Women's Center is really good. It was the Pregnancy Care Center, and they switched their name to Expectations. That's a good one. I just did a golf tournament to help out Dwell Orphan Care, and so that's an adoption agency. That's a really good one. But just local missions, get a hold of Chad Heisey. He has a list of all of those. And so those are a couple that I think in the area that are really near and dear to my heart is, the safety of our children, both the unborn and the born, who are just born out of, just the calamity of this world and the evilness of this world sometimes. So those two come to mind, but there's plenty of others we can hook you up with.
Yeah, if you're interested in learning more about those ministries, feel free to contact us here at Christ Wesleyan Church. We'll be happy to get you connected with those. But thank you so much, Pastor Branden, for spending some more time with us.
My pleasure.
And thank you, audience, for spending some time with us today on the Dive Deep podcast. The heart of why we do this is to bring about transformation for Christians in our community and across the globe in any walk of life to look and be more like Jesus. Be sure to spread the word so more people can benefit from this podcast, and spread the word about Dive Deep Live too. We would love to see you in Davis Chapel coming September 8th, starting at 6:45 p.m. You can find us here as well as the podcast. It will still keep going at cwc.life/dive-deep, at CWC Dive Deep on Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube at our Christ Wesleyan Church channel. We look forward to providing you with more great content in the weeks ahead, and I pray this episode has made you more aware of God's plan for your life. Thanks, and have a blessed day.